All right, everyone. Thanks for joining. Lawrence will have a quick opening statement, and then he'll take some questions.
Thanks, Chris. The super excited day. Feel very fortunate that Brad chose to be a Clipper. The third time is a charm. We've actually tried to trade for Brad 2 other times during the course of his career. It was a very thorough process in a short amount of time. Mark Bartelstein spoke with damn near every staff member in the organization, and maybe including Chuck the Condor himself. As you guys know, Brad is a gifted two-way player who's a 3-level scorer who can create offense for himself and others. He brings additional ball handling, playmaking, and shooting to the group, areas we wanted to upgrade. T. can use him in a variety of ways. He's elite in handoffs. He's elite in throw and go situations, which we've been looking for some more movement shooting. Plus, as you've seen over the course of his career, Brad can, very effective coming off flares, pin downs, pick and rolls on the run, catch and shoot, and playing off closeouts. So we feel very fortunate. Obviously, Brad had a number of choices, and we feel blessed that we've built an organization that's now a destination organization. I think when people think about the Clippers, not only do they think about Steve Ballmer, Intuit Dome, our market, T. Lue, our players, but they think about winning, which was really important to Brad. He wants to win. In the last 14 years, we've won the second most games in the NBA. Obviously, we haven't won championships, which is always the goal. But one of the biggest things for Brad was the opportunity to win and to win big. And we feel very fortunate that he chose to be a Clipper. So without further ado, you guys can ask all the good questions.
Hey, I got one for you, Lawrence.
Okay. Is it a good one?
Well, that's to be determined.
Okay.
And it is me, so
So I know it's a high-level question.
What do you like about the roster you put together and its ability to compete in the real tough Western Conference?
Yeah, well, I think what we've done is we've added more versatility within the lineups. I think T. Lue can go a bunch of different directions. Going into the offseason, we wanted to add to not just our front court size, but also diverse skill sets that also complemented each other. We wanted to, we saw just in terms of with kind of our problems at times with taking care of the ball, we wanted to add some more secondary playmaking and ball handling. I think we've been able to do that. All this on paper. But I think going back to your question, we have the ability to play Kawhi at 3 or at 4. We have the ability to play DJ at 3 or 4. We can play John Collins at 4 and 5. We can have 48 minutes of rim protection with Zoo and Brooke. And, we can have KD as the backup point guard, KD as a starter. I mean, there's just so many different directions we can go with the group. And we said, even when I go back to kind of our, postseason press conference, we talked about just with a healthy Kawhi to start the season, we felt like we were in a better place. And now we've addressed our needs. I think we've added to our depth. We've added to our size, our athleticism, our positional versatility. So we're super excited about the group. As you and I are speaking, I look to my right, I'm looking at the gym, and there's James Harden working out. So I love seeing that. So it's a very motivated group. It's a group that understands how incredibly hard it is to win. And to your reference, the Western Conference, it's a bear, but that doesn't mean you don't keep on trying everything possible to maximize your roster to give our group the best chance possible.
Thank you.
It was a damn good question, too.
And a damn good answer, too.
Very rarely do the answers match the questions. I understand my limitations.
Hey, Lawrence, Mark Bartelstein was saying over the last couple of days that, it was a long process for them, and they wanted to make sure it was a great fit, and the Suns kind of gave them permission to speak to teams about potential landing spots. I'm curious, in the pitch that you guys made to Brad, who was kind of part of that pitch, and what was the pitch to Brad to convince him that this was a spot for him?
Well, I think the one thing is it wasn't a pitch. I think you have to deal in truths, that it's not recruiting. I've known Mark for close to 30 years, and Mark is extremely thorough, and he'll read through any bullshit. So I think the main reasons that Brad came here, I think it always starts at the top with our chairman, Steve Ballmer, and his commitment to make this the ultimate destination franchise for players and staff. And Brad wanted to get a sense for what Steve was like. And he saw not just the competitive side, but also the caring side. And then, okay, for a player like Brad, who's gone through a tough stretch in Phoenix, the head coach and the point guard are going to be critical. So with T. Lue, he's known T. Lue for a long, long time. Brad's a St. Louis, native. T. Lue's from Mexico, Missouri, which is probably like 3 hours away. But they had a previous relationship, and I think that's one of the great things about T. Lue is his ability not just to get the best out of the players on the court, but his ability to connect with all players off the court. And then for James, it was huge because you look at James's track record of getting the best out of his teammates. Norm should have been an all-star last year. Zoo probably should have been an all-NBA player last year. The year before, PG had his most efficient, season of his career. The year before that, Joel Embiid was the MVP. Like, there's direct correlations, and you connect the dots that James is a playmaker, and his willingness to sacrifice his own scoring in order to get great shots for his teammates. So I think those three were critical to Brad's decision. And, the great thing about it, just in terms of conversation with Mark, was Mark would have questions. And I said, well, why don't you just talk to them? And, we got permission through James' agent, Mike Silverman. He was totally comfortable. So James spent over 30 minutes on the phone with Mark Bartelstein. They're like, there aren't many players who, one, would be willing to do it, and two, who would spend the time talking to another agent to explain why the Clippers are the best place for Brad. And then it goes beyond that. A very important piece is the medical piece. Mark spent, hours on the phone with people like Maggie Bryant, who's the head of our performance health and wellness, Jesse Phillips, who had worked with Brad with the Wizards. So he had a high level of comfort there. Spoke to, our performance people. I mean, it was, like I said, short amount of time, but exhaustive. Mark and I would speak 4 or 5 times a day, but I think it was all the inputs from people like Steve, T. Lue, James, Maggie, Jesse, and everyone else he spoke to. I mean, Brad would talk to former players. He spoke to former coaches. Like, they wanted to make sure, because this decision couldn't be wrong for Brad. It had to be right. And the same sort of scrutiny that they put our organization under, they did for the other teams as well. And so I think when you go through a process like this and the player has multiple choices, and the fact that he chooses the LA Clippers is just another validation of the great work, starting with Steve and the group, that what we've done, not just now, but over a course of, 14 years, whatever the case may be. And obviously we know we still have a lot of work to do and a lot of improvements to be made, but it's awesome that Brad has chosen to join our group.
Lawrence, excuse me. Lawrence, you mentioned James being on the phone with Mark Bartelstein for 30 minutes. A couple of weeks ago when we talked to you, said he's been huge in drawing free agents to the team. What has that relationship been like to work with him over these last couple of years in getting more talent in through the door and getting guys excited to be part of this roster, playing alongside of him, and the things that he can do for them?
Yeah, I mean, James, along with Kawhi, has been an unbelievable partner. I mean, you saw first just the structure of his contract. So without James, we can't even get Brad Beal, because we wouldn't have use of the full MLE. So that allowed us to get Brook Lopez and Brad Beal because of the way James structured his contract. 2, the way he structured his contract in year 2 gives us flexibility that if we want to have max space, we can choose to do so. But so he's been great in that sense. He's also been great in that he's very, very proactive. When word was out that, Brad may get a buyout and we were allowed to talk to Brad, James was the first one. Well, let me call him, and willing to do anything. So James, all James cares about is winning. That's it. And he's willing to sacrifice parts of his game, how he structured his contract. He does it in every which way. And so it's awesome to see. It's awesome to see his thirst to get better, to try to win a championship, to try to do something for the LA Clippers that's never been done before. and he's been totally invested. And it's great to have players who put so much into it, not just with the work they put in the game, but the work that they try to do to attract other top talent to the organization. And I think also James can attest to the fact that when James came here, obviously there was some noise about, what went on in Philly, Brooklyn, and he could attest to how narratives can change quickly if you do the work, you produce, and the organization is about what they say they're about. So when it's another all-star level player talking to another all-star caliber player, just both the validation and the credibility that it goes beyond it. Because the kind of Tomer's thing, otherwise it kind of comes off as like a recruiting pitch. No, like this is one player to another, and they have history together. And so I thought it was very, very powerful and meaningful.
I love it.
What's up, Law?
What's up, man? Your statement was interesting to me. You referred to Brad. You mentioned a lot of things, but in particular, you referred to him as a two-way player. And I wanted to know what you meant by that. And if you could elaborate on his expectations defensively, what you see on that end in particular.
Yeah. The Rod Thorne, who was my boss in New Jersey for 10 years, was with the Washington Wizards when Brad was there. And Rod said, Brad Beal is one of the best two-way players in the game when he was with him. And I know you can pick apart someone's game and you can say, hey, this is what he was in Phoenix. This is the analytics. This is the film. The way that we look at players like Brad is what they can be, not what they are. And it's no different when we looked at a guy like James or looked at Nico or looked at Russ or look at Reggie Jackson. It's like we all have access to the same data. We have access to all the same games. But it's also to see what's inside a guy, what's inside his heart, what's inside his head. What does it look like in our defensive system? And so what I said is what I meant. I do think Brad's a two-way player, and because I think he's capable of doing it and he's capable of being it. I mean, even if you go back to their playoff series in his first year, I mean, he was picking up Ant Edwards full court. But I think with our defensive personnel and the different combinations that T. Lue has the ability to use, I think we'll get the best out of Brad Beal on both ends.
Hey, L, I think you have 2 roster spots left. One which you think you have to use. What do you anticipate filling that last roster spot while holding the other one open?
Yeah. I think we'll continue to look to reinforce our playmaking and ball handling. I think those are, like I said, going into the offseason, it was about front court size, versatility, and diversity, and adding to our shooting and playmaking. I think we'll lean into the ball handling and playmaking.
Lawrence, are you going to sign Bradley Beal? I mean, you signed Bradley.
Yes, we signed him. Done.
You did sign Bradley Beal. Are you going to sign Chris Paul?
What I'd say about Chris is he's a great player. He's a great Clipper. He obviously possesses some of the qualities we just referenced about. And of course, we're strongly considering him.
Lawrence, a lot of us saw Kawhi in Las Vegas. How is he doing? How is he progressing since the last time I guess you talked to him and we saw him, which was in Denver?
He's doing great. He's he's healthy, which it's not just a physical thing. It's also a mental and emotional thing to go into an off season without having surgery. So he feels great. He's been working extremely hard. He has some trips lined up. He'll be going to Africa at the end of the month. He continues to work. We'll be sending a coach with him. So he's super excited about the roster. He's super excited about the season. And he's super excited that he's going to be able to begin a training camp.
Lawrence, when you look at
the last time we spoke to you, I know you just mentioned CP directly, but you had mentioned wanting to add to the front court, the shooting, the playmaking. Obviously, the playmaking is the final area that you guys are still kind of looking at. At risk of this being a Ty Lue question, when you look at the current roster makeup and how you're hoping to round it out, you obviously have James and Brad as two guaranteed rotation guards, and then Chris and Bogey, who were also key rotation guards last season. In your mind, where do you see the fit for another potential reserve guard, given not only the names that I mentioned, but also if, let's say, like 3 guard groups were the viable answer to that question, how that could impact some of the wings that were also key members of the rotation last season?
Yeah, I think it's all about role definition. We're very, very direct with any player we bring on board about what their role is, and to see if their ability to accept that role and role awareness, especially in this next roster spot, will be critical. Because to your point, when you look at it, is you have 10 quality rotation players right now, not to discount some of our other guys, but in terms of proven NBA rotation players, we typically play 9. And what we've seen is sometimes the problem of having too many guys and how that can impact the team. So we've learned from those lessons. And I think the conversations that we have with anyone who's going to join the Clippers next, they understand it's a reserve role. They understand kind of going into camp exactly what it looks like. So there's no preconceived misconceptions. Yet you also have a responsibility that James did play 79 games. He played the 5th most minutes. And I'll knock on wood, but the reality is for any NBA team, the amount of times you have your top 10 all available, it's usually 21 to 25 times throughout the course of a year. So you literally need everyone on your roster to be able to contribute. But to your point, because we do have a lot of versatility. So Brad Beal could, give us, more playmaking, ball handling. He will. Chris Dunn can be the backup point guard. Bogey can handle along with James. You just want to put everything on the table and then find the best person who can have total role acceptance and awareness and still, if needed to play, can play.
Lawrence, when you look at Brad, I know that there was some health concerns and the fit in Phoenix was entirely great, I think. When you look at his overall versatility, it seems like when he's been asked to do less, the efficiency's gone up. Are those things you can kind of draw from when you look at how he's maybe not going to be asked to do as much on this team and the efficiency can kind of rise and the defensive progress will also
Well, I think you go back to, and not to take any sort of slight at Phoenix, but, playing with James is a whole lot different than what their situation was. Obviously, he, like Brad had great success playing with John Wall. He actually had great success playing with Russ when they made the trade. So we can look at those situations. He's elite in handoffs, like elite, best in the league. And I think that's one of the things that T. Lue wanted to unlock is he wanted to get some more movement and movement shooting into the game, things that we've done in the past. So I think Brad, we can definitely play to his strengths there. He's, obviously a high level 3-point shooter, catch and shoot 3-point shooter. He's high level attacking closeouts. He's great at finishing at the rim. He's great at finishing in the deep paint area. And I think some of the other areas that, especially in his Washington days, that he was able to explore with not the same level of talent, I think we'll be able to get a little bit more out of, with his pick and roll play. It's different when you have the guys that we have spacing the floor and the centers that we have that'll be playing with. And we have a lot of different, whether it's Zoo, whether it's Brook, whether it's John Collins, and you have that nice balance of defense and offense on the floor. I think there's going to be a lot. And look, the great thing is, T. Lue's an elite head coach that just given him different tools and different personnel to experiment with. I think over the course of the year, he'll have us super prepared for a great playoff run.
Lawrence, you had said at the end of the season that your aim was to get younger. Was this just a matter of the best fit for your team in signing Brook and Brad and John Collins? Did they just fit better than going after a younger player that might not have been a better fit?
What's age? It's just a number, right? Well, look, John, obviously, I think he's 27. I think he'll be 28 to start the year. So he's in his prime. Brad actually is technically a couple months younger than Norm. And Brook is ageless. So it's 37 is like 17. Because I need Brook to be younger because that makes me younger since I coached him when he was a rookie. I think ultimately at the end of the day, you're looking to make your team as best as you can possibly make it, whether it's younger or older. And so I think with it, I think we're going to lean into the experiences. Brooks obviously won a championship. He's been battle tested. John's been to the Eastern Conference Finals. Brad is super thirsty, hungry. So a talented guy with that sort of motivation and chip on his shoulder. And we'll just continue to add the best people possible, regardless of age.
Lawrence, I know that we've acknowledged a lot about the flexibility that you've tried to maintain for your roster going forward. How do you balance that part of things with the fact that, you got a lot of guys who can be free agents next year or the year after? How do you kind of keep them together rather than splintering off into wondering about what might be next for them individually?
Yeah, well, I think if you really look at it is, John's on an expiring contract. Some others have options, and we just wanted to put together the best roster we could while preserving the financial flexibility, and which includes a path to max space if we choose to go that route. But I think everyone is super, super motivated. I think we have guys in the right spots in their career that are just totally focused on putting the team first, because they know if we win, usually there's direct correlation to guys, getting paid. If we underperform, that usually has a correlation, then you don't get rewarded. And our guys have been in the league long enough to understand, like, this is all about the team winning and putting all our focus and making the team first.
Lawrence, I wanted to ask if you go back a year ago and the complications of the second apron and the limitations that had for roster building going forward, and you fast forward to to now, and you look at the way that you guys have been able to retool the roster on the margins, get all these guys in and out via trade, free agency. Was this kind of, I don't want to say the vision that you had a year ago when the decision with PG and everything, but was this kind of the route that you thought could play out in roster building because you then got under the second apron and all these mechanisms were open for you?
Yes, I think in the sense that, like, when PG decided to go to Philly and we weren't willing to go, to a fourth year, it created all sort of optionality for us. And when you're in the second apron, to me, you have to be a Final Four team, a legit Final Four team, because you have no flexibility. And especially in our situation where we don't own our own draft for a little bit, it was going to be even more incumbent because we weren't going to get, high level young talent in here and we're always going to be competitive. We're always trying to win. So how are we going to improve the team? Well, you better lean in that group was good enough. So making the decision we made, now it opens up when you're not an apron team and the ability to make uneven trades. To your point, the ability to have your mid-level. Our focus last year was we want to get back to our core identity: hard playing, competitive, tough, defensive minded. And so, bringing in DJJ, bringing in Chris Dunn, bringing in Nico, and that we felt like that is our true roots of the group. Now, to your point, if you're in the second apron, guess what? There is no Bogdanovich trade. There is no Brook Lopez, there is no Brad Beal, and there is no John Collins. And all those are possible because you have the flexibility, because you're not an apron team. And I think to get back in the second apron, you have to be extremely, extremely confident that you're a Final Four team. And I think now we're reaping the benefits and of good fortune, because Brad Beal was never a target. Like, we never thought Brad Beal would be bought out. Brook Lopez, like, we were overjoyed and overwhelmed to be able to get Brook. Like, Brook's a starting center who 2 years ago was second in the league in defensive player of the year award. John Collins has been a target for a couple of years. So you never quite know who exactly it's going to turn into, but you have to put yourself in a position where those guys become options. And that's the same position that we're in going into next summer. It's just optionality. And we're lucky, because of Steve, because of T. Lou, because of our players, because of our market, because of the Intuit Dome, because of our winning tradition, that players from other teams want to be here. And we have to be in an ability to at least have a chance to obtain them. And, I think that's just the lesson of having those competitive advantages along with the optionality and flexibility to give ourselves a chance.
Lawrence, just to follow up on that, have you found more of a
Hold on, we're actually running out of time on this Zoom, and we can blame Cooper. We love Cooper. He can't figure out how to add more time.
God damn.
So we literally have 4 more minutes. So let's make this the last question, please. Sorry.
Just to follow up on that one, have you found players and agents around the league that there's more of a willingness and understanding under this restrictive kind of CBA to take more team-friendly deals and kind of work together more? Not that it wasn't before, but under these guys, it just seems like much tougher to work with nowadays.
Well, I think each year is different. This year there was only one team that had max cap space in Brooklyn, and they're in a different building cycle. Next summer will be different. There'll be significantly more teams with significant cap space. The apron system has we knew going into the PG and Kawhi negotiation that it was going to change the game, and you have to adapt and you have to make some hard decisions. And I think, it's like Boston, the decisions that they're making, they don't want to make those decisions. But because of unfortunate circumstances with Tatum, they have to. And I think you'll see the league overall, just you have to adjust. And, we were kind of the first test case, but there'll be many others along the way where you're going to have to make some tough, both flexibility decisions and also financial decisions.